if your vehicle needs new struts, and then stay tuned because I'm going to be replacing the struts today on this 2015 Toyota Sienna. So before we get to the struts or anything, we have to remove all of the plastic crap out of the way. So first we are going to be removing the wiper arms on the driver's side and the passenger side, and then we are going to remove the cowl afterwards. So you're gonna use a thin screwdriver or something to get under here to remove the plastic caps for the wiper arms. And do the same for the passenger side here. Both of the nuts are 14 millimeters. Now in order to get these off, what I usually do is push down on the arm, and then you'll be able to slide these off easy. Now if you want, you could use like a whiteout and make a tiny mark on the windshield to note on where the position is. But I know on these Toyotas, they'll usually have a mark here somewhere in which you can reposition on where the wipers were after the job is done. Now you can remove the trim for the rubber here on both sides. Then the cowl would be able to be removed from there for the plastic part. It just it clips in. You need to remove the rubber piece here out of the way on both sides. Be able to lift up and to pull out on the plastic here, and then that's it. We found ourselves a nest here from all the rodents. So I'm not too sure on what's going on here. So the next thing we need to do is to remove the wiper transmission and the motor out of the way. So we have one, two, I believe there's a third bolt somewhere in order to remove this. There's three here. So we're going to disconnect the electrical connectors and get that out of the way. There are the clips here that you need to take off because you need to get the harness out of the way here. For the electrical connector here, probably just want to use a piece of tape here so that it's dangling in the way. You also want to be careful of the windshield here when you remove the metal piece of the cowl. because you don't want to damage or crack or, or chip the windshield, so you need to be careful. So we are going to remove the wiper motor transmission. They are a 10 millimeter bolts. This just should come out afterwards. You just need to slide out the rubber here this way, and then you should be able to get it out. So now we just have a bunch of 10 millimeter bolts to take out from the cowl. So now you need to remove these two for the passenger side strut tower, because that's holding the cowl in place. And now you also have to do the same on the driver's side here, on the two here. Now you should be able to lift the whole thing out now. It should come free. One last thing you need to know here is there's a connector here that I forgot to mention that needs to be taken out. There's a connector here that needs to be taken out. I believe this is for the something to do with the fuel pump circuit or something. So we're gonna remove the connector here. Just need to push down on the connector and to pull out. You should be able to get it out afterwards. Just be careful to not hit the windshield. So you should be able to carefully to lift this up and out without damaging anything. You should be able to take this out now. So as you can see here, that the reason why we are replacing the struts is because that it's leaking everywhere. It's going all the way down, all the way to the bottom here. You can see that it's all wet. So the first thing we are going to do is to remove the stabilizer links out of the way. We might not be able to save them, so we are just going to be replacing them. But if you're able to save them, you just need to remove the top part here that's connected to the strut. You don't need to remove the one that's connected to the stabilizer bar. But I'm going to be replacing them anyways because I have the parts here. This is a 17 a millimeter. It'll be easier if you're able to get some room to fit an impact wrench there, if you're able to. I will have to move the camera out of the way for a second and to crack this loose. We are going to try to use a vice grip in order to get this loose here. This one came out a lot easier than expected. I know some of you guys are going to question if I live in the Rust Belt or not. I do live in the Rust Belt, but this one just came off easy. So we're going to remove the stabilizer link out of here. Get that out of the way. Now we are just going to do the top one now. We're going to do the top one. Top one is usually the easiest one to do. You need to grab yourself a very strong impact. I'm using the Milwaukee fuel here, so hopefully I'll be able to get this out. If it keeps on spinning, you need to reposition the vice grip and try again. Now it's out. I don't normally like to save these because usually when I try to get them out, the boot and the grease, like the grease has came out and the boot is all damaged. So there's no point of saving these. Just buy new ones. So the next thing we are going to do is to remove the ABS holder, the harness out of the way, and we are going to remove the bolt here that's holding the brake line for the brake caliper and the ABS. This is a 12 mil. And get this out of the way. Just make sure you know the orientation here on how this was all put together. So right now I'm going to put 2 of the lug nuts here to hold the rotor. I'm just going to measure and how much the camber is so that I'll be able to get it close or relatively the same, because when you replace struts, it's going to disturb the camber a tiny bit, and it's also going to disturb the toe settings for the wheel alignment. So I'm just going to see if I'm able to get the camber to be almost the same or close from what it was before. You probably still do need to go for a wheel alignment, but because the customer is not able to go for the wheel alignment right away, this is just a temporary thing so that you're able to drive for a short while, so you're able to get to the shop so you can do the wheel alignment. So I have this tool that I got from Amazon. It's like a camber gauge that tells you the degrees. So I'm just going to put it on here and to see on what the degrees is. You need to level up the bubble first. So we're going to try to get this straight somehow. The bubble in the center, I see it's set at 0.1. So you can also have a look at the specifications under service information, just to verify on what the specifications are for your vehicle. So it's 0.1 degrees here, or 0. I don't know if it's accurate, but we'll see on what happens. Now, I'm not sure if this gauge is used while you are doing the adjustments, or for you to get a before and after measurements. I'm thinking that this is to be used while you are doing the measurements, so I could be wrong about this. So anyhow, I'm going to start removing the struts now. So this is 22 on both sides here. 22 and 22. So we're going to remove the nut here. Get this out of the way. Make sure that when you reinstall these, that you get them back in the same way. Make sure that the bolt goes through this way, the nut this way. I'm working on the driver's side here. You want to make sure you are removing the nut and not the bolt when you are loosening it. Sometimes you may need to push in order to get the nut, the bolt out of the way. In some cases, if you want, you can mark the camber bolts here if you want, and to put them in the same position as it was. You can insert the nut back and just give it a few taps with the hammer, just to lightly to get it out. Remove the nut and you're able to get the bolt out. Just be aware that the suspension and the steering knuckle is going to shift over, so you need to be careful. So you need to be careful about the suspension here. Also, you also want to be careful that you have at least one nut still connected on the top of the strut tower. You don't want the strut to fall here, because if it does, you're going to damage the CV axle, and you could also damage other things. So you want to be extremely careful here. Make sure that you are holding the strut as you are removing the top of the nut. So I'm going to be removing the last one here as I'm holding the strut from underneath. So now I'm going to be removing the nut. Get the strut out of the way. You want to be very careful here, because it's putting a tension here. And comes out the strut. So here's the old one, and I'm just going to be showing you the the new one soon. So I have the new strut and the old strut. Just make sure they are the same. I'm using the Monroe quick struts. I usually like to use the KYBs, but they were not available as a quick strut, so I'm just using these ones. The Monroe comes with these cheap nuts, so I don't use the new nuts because they are very cheap and they strip easily. So I'm just going to reuse the old nuts that came with the vehicle, because those ones are a lot better. I don't use the ones that come in the box because they're very cheap and they often don't work. So now I'm just going to line up and install a new strut. You probably want to get the one of the nuts here, so you're able to get them in place. So I'm gonna try to line this up back inside. So right now I'm going to put the one the nut in the back here, because these two is when the cowl was on top. So I'm going to put these two back on last, after I put the cowl and everything on, because these two ones that are further out are the ones that hold the cowl down in place at the same time. So we are going to install that last. I'm just going to get the one bolt here and tighten them up. One other thing to note is that these nuts are not the same as the other one. So there's these nuts, they usually go on the outer ones. This one, the one that has the shoulder, needs to go in the corner here. So they are not the same. I'm just letting you guys know. So make sure you put them back in the same spot. I'm just going to temporarily install these nuts here for the time being. So when after I put the cowl back on, I'll tighten these up. So we are just going to run the nut through here on this corner. So now I clean the bolts and the nuts with the bench grinder. So I'm just going to add a little bit of grease on these bolts, so that they don't get seized up in the future. So we're just going to try to line. We are going to try to line everything up here now. Try to get in the first bolt, so that you don't need to hang on to this the entire time. And do the same for the bottom bolt. Don't tighten anything up yet until you have both of the bolts in. So you can see the camber gauge reading here. As I push this in, you will see the numbers change slightly. It was at 0.1, so we are going to try to get it exactly the same as we are tightening up the bolts. So we are going to tighten up the bolts now. If you want, you can get yourself a helper to try to get the measurements exactly the same as you are tightening up the bolts. You let go. So we are going to torque this to 184. I'm just going to tighten that up a little bit more. So now we are going to install the ABS back along with the brake hose. So I cleaned the rust a tiny bit on the bolt there. We're going to install the bolt. And the torque spec for this is is nice and tight, or good and tight. Make sure you put the bracket back for the ABS wheel speed sensor. Should be able to lock in between the two holes here. So now that's all done. I'm going to be installing a new stabilizer link on this side. I'm using the Moog stabilizer links. So I just like to apply some grease on the threads here. So we are going to install the stabilizer link now. To push down on here. Don't forget that these they come with the washers on these, so make sure you don't lose or misplace the washers here. This stabilizer link is not pointed straight. It's shifted over a tiny bit. Just need to push some pressure down on the stabilizer bar to keep it straight. just using a pry bar to push down on the stabilizer bar just to keep the stud straight as I'm trying to tighten it up. The Moog uses a 18 nut, and they have the wrench flats in the back here to help to make installation and removal easier. So I'm holding the wrench and pushing down on the pry bar at the same time just to keep things straight here. I had the impact on low speed. Now I usually don't normally have to do this because usually most of the time I don't have to do this for stabilizer links, but on this one it looks like I need to push down here in order to get the stud and the nut straight. Because as soon as you let go of the pry bar, it's not going to be straight. So you need this to be straight so you don't strip out the threads. So we're gonna place an 18 here. This is going to the right, so I mean to the left. So I just place a wrench here, and I rest the wrench on the axle there, and I will be able to tighten it up without too much trouble here. The grease fittings don't have like a 90-degree fitting, so sometimes you may need to change them because you won't be able to reach here, or you have to turn the wheel in order to grease them. You may have to turn the wheel in order to reach here if you're able to. Usually I just like to use the remainder of the grease just for like for rust proofing or something, to put them on the bolts. You may need to clean the brake rotor after, and then you're all good to go. I'm using the Milwaukee grease gun. So I started to use this because it's a lot easier, because I was killing myself all the time to grease the fittings, because it's every single time I'm getting old, so I need something that's easy on the hands. If you got any dirt, grease, and you probably should clean the brake rotor. Just make sure everything is tight, and you're all good to go. So now I'm all done the driver's side. I still have to do the passenger side. Uh, I'm not going to show that because it's the exact same thing. So after I'm done the passenger side, and everything is in, I'll bring you guys back on camera and go from there. So I'm just working on the passenger side here. Over here it's 1.4 degrees here for camber. I'm just about to remove the strut here, just using this side as a reference. And so now the vehicle is settled on the ground. We are going to reinstall the cowl, and we're going to torque the top strut mount bolts. Reinstall everything back together now. I was saying before to the outer nuts, I want to keep them there, and the two nuts here, the inward nuts, you install them later once you put the cowl back in. Then you can reinstall the nuts on each side. I sprayed a little bit of the fluid film, the rust proofing stuff, just to make things easier. I'm going to spray the holes for the bolts, and and line those up. So just make sure that you leave these 3 holes open for the wiper transmission. After you're all done here, there's 1, 2, and the 3 here in the back here. So we're going to tighten the bolts for the cowl. So now we are going to snug up the nuts here. We are going to torque the bolts to 66 foot-pounds. So I'm just I'm putting the cowl and everything back, and I tighten all the bolts. I ran into one issue off camera, and one of the studs broke from the passenger side strut. I was trying to I torqued I was trying to torque the nut, but I was not able to, and it kept on spinning, and then it broke in half after. I wasn't able to get it on camera because I was very frustrated. So what I did is I hammered out the old stud from the old strut, and I removed the strut from the passenger side here, and I pressed it in by using a couple of nuts to press in the stud. Then I put everything all back. I put in the new nut here that came with the quick struts. My advice for you guys is to not follow the torque specifications for the top strut mount. My advice is to just tighten everything just snug, tight enough so that it's like okay tight, and then you should be all good to go. A lot of times on these aftermarket struts, I follow the torque specifications, and either the stud got stripped out, or the stud it broke off on me. So you have to be careful. So my advice is to just tighten up these nuts just snug. They don't need to be extremely tight. Really, is just to hold them in place. So just until you have them snug, and then stop. I wouldn't trust using the torque wrench on these ones. So that's my personal experience and personal advice to you guys. So you guys don't have to end up in with this problem. So now we are going to put the wiper transmission back in place. We're going to start the bolts first. So now don't forget to hook up the connectors back in, especially this one over here, and the connectors for the wiper motor, the wiper transmission. We install the harness back. The connector for the wiper motor, for the wiper transmission. Install the clips. Make sure all the bolts are tight before you put the plastic piece back on, and then you should be all good to go. Make sure these clips at the bottom are lined up underneath the windshield. And you have clips that's going through the bottom, and to be able to line those up too. I need to put this back here, back in. Do the same for the other side here. Reinstall the wiper arms back now. One for the driver's side and one for the passenger side. And you will need to line up the wipers the same way you had them and check for the proper operation. If they don't line up or if they hit the end of the windshield, then you will need to readjust them by loosening these nuts and moving the position. So now we're gonna try the wipers and make sure that they're not obstructing anything and readjust it if necessary. Spring more. Okay, stop it. So once you're done, you can just replace the plastic trim pieces. And then you should be all good to go. Just verify everything for proper operation and go for a road test. So everything is all finished on this van. I just need to clean everything up and go for a road test, and then that's it. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please don't forget to give it a like, and please consider subscribing to my channel if you're not already a subscriber, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good day and take care.